Hey, what's up guys? Thank you for watching my YouTube channel, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and you'll get a notification every time we have new videos on our channel, right? So I got some questions on the previous video that I'd made asking me about bank owned properties and foreclosures specifically, and how and where to go about looking for these kinds of properties. All right, so I thought I'd make a quick video for you guys showing you the kind of websites that we use to look for these properties. All right, so first site I'm going to mention is pretty commonplace and obvious, and that's the MLS, right? So you do need to be a real estate agent to have access to the MLS. If you don't, then you can use sites like realtor.com to search for properties, but having access to the MLS would be supreme because it's going to give you access to the phone number for the real estate agent, their cell phone number, the email address, the ability to contact the listing agent directly on a property that's available to make an offer, right? So that site number one would be the MLS, right? Site number two would be realtor.com, and then realtor.com is pretty much a syndicating site that feeds off all of the MLSs. So what that means is any property listed on the MLS anywhere in the United States is going to feed into realtor.com. So if you're looking at that, you're going to see things, and a lot of people that are real estate agents make the mistake of thinking, well, I got access to the MLS, so I'm not going to look at realtor.com. And I'll tell you why that's a mistake, because sometimes people list a property in an area where they're not a member of that MLS, right? So as an example, let's say you live in South Florida, but you got a friend in Orlando, you got a property you want to list. They say, hey, I'll list it for you, and they put it on the Orlando MLS, even though it's not local to South Florida. So the problem is that realtors looking on the MLS are not going to see that, but guess who will see that? People looking on realtor.com, even those that don't have a license, right? So make sure if you do have a license that you look at the MLS and look on realtor.com as well, just to see what's out there, right? And sometimes there's for sale by owner listings or flat fee listings that you wouldn't necessarily see on your MLS, but you will see on realtor.com. So site number one, MLS. Site number two, realtor.com. Next site I'm going to mention is Zillow, right? So Zillow has got for sale by owner leads, and that's a good resource. They're not necessarily bank owned, but you can check off the foreclosures or coming foreclosures, and that's a good resource as well. Now let's specifically jump into bank owned properties. All right, so for bank owned properties, I'm going to mention Hubzu, right? That's HUBZU.com, and that's a site where you have to register to bid, and you can actually bid on properties. Not all of the properties on there are bank owned properties, so make sure you're checking off that bank owned property designation. And you do need to put a credit card in for the deposit. There's a process to learn. I teach this in quite detail at our Wholesaling in a Circle. But basically, Hubzu.com is our third site. Next one I'm going to mention is auction.com, and auction.com is also an online auction site where you register to bid just like Hubzu, and once you have a profile, you register to bid, you can bid on any property. And once again, not everything on there is bank owned property, so one of the key things you got to look out for there is some of the foreclosure auctions that are actually the sales at the courthouse are basically listed on there as well, and you necessarily as a new investor don't want to be bidding on those because it's a little bit more complex. You want to be sticking to bidding on actual REOs, bank owned properties that are owned by the bank. So make sure you check off that designation when you're doing your search. And one key tip for auction.com is when you're bidding on it, make sure that if you put up a bid deposit that you bid on multiple properties in the same auction, so that you don't have to put up the bid deposit twice, right? Okay, next site I'm going to mention is Hud Properties, right? So you can go to hudhomestore.com and you can bid on Hud Properties. Now here's the caveat, you do need to be a licensed real estate agent to do so. So if you're not, you're going to have to reach out to a real estate agent and have them make a bid on your behalf. My recommendation is get your real estate license, right? Because it's going to give you access to being able to bid on sites like this, plus access to lockbox codes, abilities to preview houses, show houses to potential buyers, list your own properties, as well as get contact info for the listing agent, right? So hudhomestore.com is for bidding on Hud Properties. And the next site I'm going to mention is Fannie Mae Properties. So that's homepath.com. homepath.com, and that's where you can bid on Fannie Mae properties. And all of these properties, they're bank owned, right? So you can, in this case, Fannie Mae owned, but you can basically bid on them and you can win your auction and you can turn around and resell these properties. You do need to double close them, but you can resell them for a profit, right? So Fannie Mae's website's homepath.com. Another one is Freddie Mac. So Freddie Mac, their website is homesteps.com, right? And basically that's another government entity that takes back properties and that's looking to sell them in an on online forum, like an auction, essentially. So what happens with all these properties, whether they're a HUD or Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Hubzu auction, they're all showing up on the MLS, but the difference is that when you're looking for them, you're looking for them in a different manner, in a different way, right? And each one of these sites has different intricacies. I go into quite a lot of detail in this at my Wholesaling in a Circle. I'll put a link to that below for those of you that are interested, right? So far we discussed the MLS, Realtor.com, Zillow, Hubzu.com, Auction.com, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and HUD. All right, so basically those are the main sites that we are bidding on a day-to-day basis. Now, do keep in mind that back in the heyday, 2008, 2009, when I started our real estate training program, there were an abundance of bank-owned properties. So the best place to go was simply looking at the MLS and bidding on sites like the ones that I just mentioned and getting those properties under contract, and then either closing on them yourself, fixing them up, keeping them as rentals, or wholesaling them to other investors. Now, many years has gone by. Inventory has dwindled. With COVID, it's absolutely dwindled to the lowest inventory level I've personally ever seen in 18 years of real estate. So you're not going to see much inventory if you go to these sites right now, but I firmly believe that will change in the next 6 to 12 months because the eviction moratoriums have ended, the foreclosure moratoriums are ended, the banks are going to start foreclosing on those. You're going to start seeing those properties creeping up. So learn how to bid on these sites. So once again, we've got Hubzu.com, we've got Auction.com, we've got the MLS, Realtor.com, Zillow, and then in addition to that, we had HUDHomestore.com, we had HomePath.com for Fannie Mae properties, and HomeSteps.com for Freddie Mac properties. And once again, guys, think about getting a real estate license. There's a lot of new regulation going out there right now, especially if you want to wholesale, where they're going to require you, or they are thinking about requiring, and in some states it's already happened, where they're going to require you to have a real estate license. So my suggestion is just get a real estate license. Make it easy on yourself. Get access to the MLS, get access to lockbox codes, get access to the ability to actually show up in the property. Because remember, all of these properties, bank-owned properties, have no trespassing signs. You can't just walk into them without permission. But if you're a real estate agent, you're allowed to show that property to a potential buyer, which gives you permission to be in the property. And then having access to the lockboxes and having access to the listing agent's phone number and email address is key. All right, so just a quick tip for you guys. Lots of bank-owned property sites out there. I also recommend you start understanding how foreclosures in your state work and how to put together a short sale, because I think there's going to be a lot of action down the line in the next 6 to 12 months in that area. So much so that we're doing a foreclosure and short sales boot camp in a couple of months specifically to address this, because we have a lot of students that are asking questions and trying to understand how to do short sales, how foreclosures work, the whole process from when somebody gets a lis pendens file to losing the property and it becoming a bank owned, and how to buy it on all 3 steps of the way, right? So I think that that's going to be an area where there's going to be a lot of deals coming down the pipeline. So focus on that, learn how it works. One good tip I'll recommend to you guys is I do have a book called Wholesaling Bank-Owned Properties. You can get it right on my website at levinrad.com. So go ahead and download that. It's absolutely free, and get a PDF version of that book and read it, because it talks about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, how to wholesale bank-owned properties and how to bid on them, and a lot of these different websites. All right, guys, so thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next video.